Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Rabbi Bernath. I see some old faces, some new faces, some people I don't know, some people I know. So what I'll do is just give you a rundown of how this evening is going to work. So right now it's 8:05. From 8:05 until 9 o'clock will be the formal discussion. At 9 o'clock, I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. You can write your questions in the chat box throughout the evening, and I will go back into the chat box and answer your questions at 9 o'clock. And I will try to get to most of your questions. Most probably the Q&A will go from 9 until 10. That is our plan. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rabbi Bernath. For 15 years, I've been talking and counseling about relationships. It's been an amazing journey. I have lived vicariously through lots of different relationships, both religious and secular, both Orthodox, modern, very religious, traditional, and then those people who call themselves just Jewish. So I've seen it all. I've also done quite a bit of matchmaking in my day. Just had my 71st engagement. So I'd like to thank all of those who gave the suggested donation, or some of you gave even a little more. I really appreciate that. It really helps support the work that we're doing. Also, I'd like to thank those of you who bought raffle tickets. This is our big fundraiser time. And if you haven't had an opportunity to win $10,000, you can go to ndgraffle.com, and I would be so greatly appreciate. You cannot hear me. Okay, somebody can't hear me. Anyone else have a problem hearing me? So I would greatly appreciate it if you went to ndgraffle.com and you supported us and took advantage of this amazing opportunity to win $10,000. With that, I'm going to get started. Tonight, I entitled our talk, Things I Wish I Knew Before I Started Dating. I'm not going to go into my personal dating story, but I've lived vicariously through a lot of your dating stories. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all of the ideas tonight, but I want to at least give you a number of nuggets, things that I wish I could tell people before they start dating, things that I think they should know. So the first question I'm going to discuss tonight is, are you relating to the person that you're dating or to an image of that person? I find that there are so many people in the dating world, especially I would say older singles, people who have been dating for a little while, who have this image, this idea of the person that they think they want, or the person that they think exists, and really this person doesn't actually exist. It's an image, it's an idea of a person who they think may possibly in the world exist. So here I am having to make a match with an individual and the potential of that individual that may or may not exist, but at least in their mind. And the longer it's been for that particular person, the more that list keeps on going, and the more, I would say, obviously I have to generalize because we're not only the two of us here, there's more than the two of us here, so I have to generalize, but I would say that the image of the person that person is looking for as the years go on keeps on growing and growing. So my question to you tonight is, have you ever been in love? Have you ever felt like you were in love, and then the relationship ended shortly thereafter, leaving you feeling devastated? Did you move on from the relationship quickly? Did you jump to another relationship and all of a sudden having similar feelings, like same story but different face? If that's what's happening, then I would say that your healing process is a bit easier, or rather just different, than those people who have actually been in what we're going to call a true love relationship, who those people would have to mourn before they can move on. So I ask you, if that's the case, are you relating to an image of the person you're dating rather than who the person actually is, or the entirety of who they are, or their faults and all? So obviously the image is important, and no questions asked, you should find a potential spouse attractive. Attraction is very important. And, people say, oh, well, attraction, what does that mean? Maybe I'm unrealistic about what I'm attracted to. It could be that's true. It could be that you are unrealistic about the person that you're attracted to. But the fact of the matter is, if you are unrealistic, then you have to deal with that. That you have to come to terms with the fact that that is not a realistic image of the person. I would say then you're dating an image, not an individual. But you have to be attracted to the person. There needs to be some level of chemistry. Now, it could be there are people who have heightened levels of electromagnetic energy. They are attractive human beings. And many people can be attracted to them because they give off a particular energy that is attractive to individuals. That doesn't mean that they're really attractive. It just means that they have a particular allure. But what we're not talking about someone who is attractive. We're talking about you being attractive or attracted, to the person who you are potentially dating or dating. Now, I want to talk about pictures for a second, because in our wonderful world that we live in, there seems to be people making decisions based on a picture. I don't know about you, but I find that I look terrible in pictures. And I think that a lot of people, such as myself, would agree that they look terrible in pictures. And so why would you judge someone else based on a picture when perhaps, I'm just saying this, that perhaps maybe you yourself don't want to be judged based on a picture? Something for you to think about. But then again, and I go back to this, you need to be attracted to the person that you're dating. You have to be attracted to them. You should feel proud to introduce this person to your friends, to your family. But sometimes, all too often, there's a tendency to become fixated on a person's image, and you ignore who the person actually is underneath the image. You become so infatuated with who you think the person is, so taken with a particular quality or ability of this person, or maybe a look of this person, that you actually can't see who the person really is. So I know a lot of you like my handouts. I didn't have an opportunity to do handouts tonight, but I did create some whiteboard images for you, and I'm hoping that that is going to help throughout this evening. And so my first image here that I'm going to share, the first image is common traps that people fall into when they're dating. So I looked at 4 different traps tonight that people fall into when they're looking at the image and not the individual. Number 1 is they don't know their values. We're going to talk about values a little later tonight, and we'll explain what values are. Number 2, they're so caught up in the moment that by the time the dating couple talks values, they're already too emotionally involved. Number 3, they're consciously avoiding thinking about the value conflict because they don't want to, quote unquote, lose the chemistry. And number 4, they recognize the differences in values, but naively believe that love can conquer all, or more correctly, infatuation can conquer all. You don't have to write this all down. I'm going to send you these slides after tonight's talk. And so that seems to be a very common, these seem to be very common issues with regards to image. I'm sorry, I used the wrong whiteboard image. I knew there was something wrong there. That's for my later one. Where is this whiteboard image? Ah, here it is. No, that's not it either. Not that one. Okay, maybe my whiteboard images are not working the way I wanted them to. Ah, there it is. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. I back up. What do I mean by image? Here's a few possibilities. Number one, physical appearance. I would love to say that physical appearance is not important. It is important, but don't let it be number one. It is not the most important thing on your list. If physical appearance is number one for you, you are infatuated with yourself. You are infatuated with an image of an individual that may or may not exist. I'm sorry, look, you know that I'm gonna say it as it is. If you are looking at image first, which unfortunately in today's day and age, that's what's happening. We're often looking at image first. And that's a problem. So again, I start off by saying image is important, but it's not number one. And so often it's really easy to be infatuated with the image and not with the individual. Number two, profession. Some people get infatuated, or they get, their image is profession. Number three, financial status, money. Number four, who he or she rubs elbows with. Sometimes it's important. You have this idea of, they're gonna help me succeed in my career, or they're gonna help me succeed in life. That is looking at an image and not an individual. Number five, reputation, where they went to university. The fact that people say this person's brilliant, this person's successful. And number six, and this is, I would say, most common, but not spoken about enough, who this person reminds us of. Often we'll meet someone and that person will remind us of somebody we love. It could be a parent, it could be a friend, it could be somebody who we really like, and that is attractive to us because remember, attraction is not opposites. Attraction is familiarity. So we become familiar with that individual and you're like, I know this person from somewhere. Well, you may not know that person from somewhere, but you may know how they make you feel similar to somebody who you like and how that person makes you feel. It's really easy to get caught up in the image of an individual. Infatuation thrives on image, while the depth of love thrives on knowledge. Knowledge of the individual and who they really are. When you fall for someone, you forget that people's looks change and their career can change and nothing in their life is constant. And we forget that if people have money today, it doesn't mean they're gonna have money tomorrow. Actually, there's something interesting. In the Talmud's time, the coin of the day was called a zuz. And zuz literally means to move. This is because money has a way of always moving and changing owners. So we may also forget that people eventually get bored with external things, that a relationship yearns for something deeper. And so it happens when a person marries an image of an individual, not the individual themselves. The realization comes that this person is not at all like the image that they presented, and he or she is not at all what the other person expected. And sometimes a person turns out to be the very antithesis of what he or she appeared to be. What happened here? We create this image and we think that it's a game, but dating, there was somebody once said, I think Jack Benny said, I don't want to be part of a club that will have me as a member. if you're worried about, oh, I have to have an image because this person's not going to like me. If you're creating another persona, if you're creating another image of yourself in order to be able to get into a relationship, why would you want to date someone who wants to date an image of you who's not authentically you? How are you going to be able to sustain that? How are you going to be able to stay in a relationship with that person for the rest of your life if it's just an image of you and it's not actually you? Now, again, I can't say it enough. As far as looks go, attraction is important, but attraction is not enough to sustain a relationship. In addition, people's looks change with time. Women often perhaps can put on some weight as the years go on. Men develop a belly. It's commonly said that men have 3 hairstyles, right? Parted, unparted, and departed. And it's hard, as hard as we try to fight the truth, time does affect our looks. So if it's just about physical look, then it's not for the long haul. And our society is created. Everything we know, everything around our society is created for the one night stand, for the momentary relationship, for what I call the movie relationship, which is a beginning and a middle and an end in 2 hours. If you want a 2-hour relationship, then maybe looks are important. But if you're looking for something more serious, then you have to ask yourself, what is there more than the physical attraction? Now, a person's profession is usually an important expression of their identity, but a person is not only their profession. Underneath the title of doctor or farmer or teacher or lawyer or accountant, there's an individual. I hope there's an individual. If not, be careful. But I hope that there's an individual behind all of that. There's this young woman, I don't know, let's call her Nancy. She once approached me about a man that she was seriously dating. And he was actually her professor. And the age gap in this case for her wasn't an issue, and it's not my business. But she was flattered by this professor's interest in her. And in addition, the tremendous bonus of this relationship was that if she married him, her future profession would be secure, and she actually wanted to work in this field. So here she has all the connections that she ever needed. And so what happens? Nancy's infatuated. She jumps into the relationship, and she's aware in the back of her mind of this subtle voice saying, wait a minute, do you really like this guy? If he wasn't a renowned professor, would you actually date him? But she was so enthralled by the fact that she had caught such a big fish that she didn't allow herself to listen to that voice. And as weeks turned into months, the voice became louder. And it made her really uncomfortable. And then one day he asked her to marry him. And by the time she came to speak with me, she had this voice as a permanent post, a permanent pest that bothering her. And so Nancy sits there speaking about her concerns. She was able to be honest with herself. And after a long discussion, she finally admitted the bitter truth that although she was seriously considering accepting his marriage proposal, he would have never been a candidate if it wasn't for his position, for the place that he was in his life. So she didn't like him enough as a person. And by breaking off the relationship, which she did both of them a tremendous service. And although it was hard for him to let her go and it was hard for her to let him go, obviously over time there is some kind of feelings that are created. He soon came to realize that he deserved to be in a marriage with a woman who could love him for who he really was and not for the image of him. So I ask you, the first question I ask you is, when you date, are you dating a person or are you dating an image? I always say to people who are looking to date, I wish you could be in my shoes or in the shoes of someone who's been in a marriage for a number of years, because then the questions and the concerns and the issues would be so different. The issues that dating people have are so different than the issues that are actual, really in real life, that real people have in their lives. The next thing I want to talk about is bulldozers. What do I mean by bulldozers? Some people figure that this person doesn't fit the image I'm looking for. So if they don't fit the image I'm looking for, what am I going to do? I will turn them into the person that I want them to be. I want a fixer-upper. I want somebody who I can mold and shape to the kind of person that I'm looking for. And it's actually quite common, and I have to use a generalization here. Don't worry, I'm an equal opportunity offender, but it's quite common for women to try to change the men they're dating and into this image of Mr. Serious or Mr. Scholar or Mr. Right or whatever kind of image that that woman has in her mind of the kind of man that she's looking for. And we all know that it's a woman's tendency to try to improve her man, and that's a very good thing. Often women do, and that's a very good thing that women want to improve their man, but you don't want to change him. You don't want to turn him into the image of the person you think he should be. You want to turn him into the best version of himself that he can be. So we're not talking about improvement here. We're talking about a makeover, an overhaul. And if you feel that you need to overhaul your partner, it's a problem. I call this the bulldozer phenomenon. Sometimes a person bulldozes into another person's life, claiming to be helping them. And in reality, bulldozers are just trying to turn their potential mates into an image they have in their heads of the person they want to be in a relationship with. So in essence, bulldozers don't really care about other people. They're just fixated on their own agendas. Someone once described a bulldozer in their life quite well. Now, although they had broken up, they still had feelings for each other. And a few months after their breakup, they bumped into each other at a supermarket. And they both knew that there was something still there. So they decided to meet for dinner and give it a shot. They chose a really nice restaurant and they started things off right. They sat down to their meal and he told her that she was wonderful. She was such a wonderful person, and that she would be even more wonderful if she lost a few pounds. So she looks at him and says, "We haven't met in a few months, and that's what you have to say to me?" "No," but he says, "but I just think that you look better if you lost some weight." "Thanks a lot." "But no, really, I just want you to live up to your potential." And as you can imagine, the dinner ended quite abruptly. And what he meant by living up to your potential was living up to my image of what my future wife should look like. And of course, people have to be careful to take care of themselves and not let themselves go before or even after marriage. But this woman did take care of herself. And the issue was his idea and not hers. The third image issue is one that I seem to get quite a number of questions about before tonight's talk. And it seems to be something a lot of people are thinking about, and that is long distance relationships. So why do long distance relationships have a very high failure rate? So I've spoken about this before, that infatuation is short-lived, up to about 3 years. But what about a crush? A crush is a one-way infatuation. There are people who are infatuated. I say infatuated, but I'll say it more abrupt. They're in a relationship with someone in their head. They may have dated this person 3, 4, 5 years ago, but that person, even though that person has moved on, that person still lives in their head, and they are in a relationship with that person in their minds. Well, this often happens in long distance relationships. Because what happens is this idea of what I'm going to call a crush, a one-way infatuation. It's named that because it can feel like crushing when the spell of infatuation is over. So how long can this crush last? Well, over the years, in many different countries, I think a lot of people have written about crushes, and for some people, have lasted a lifetime. And it's true that this kind of one-way love, because there's no one on the other side, there's not really someone else there, it's really you on the other side of the crush. So it can last as long as you want it to last, but it doesn't really exist. It's just an image. It doesn't really exist. You think it exists, it feels real. The experience is so real, but it doesn't really exist. Imagination can last forever. So since distance lends enchantment, long distance relationships tend to have an extra amount of fantasy woven into their fabric. And long distance relationships share an additional problem. What happens when the couple is actually in the same town? Since they know that their time together is short, their relationship during the time they're together becomes very intense. And when these powerful interactions are combined with emotional goodbyes, the couple's connection appears to be more real than it actually is. It's not actually what it really is, but it appears that way. Now, because long distance relationships have become so common today, and even with COVID and what's going on in the world today, I think they've even become more common. I'm not saying that don't do it. I'm just saying that it's great to know before you start dating what to be careful for. You don't want it to turn into a crush. You don't want it to turn into these intense, very intense moments. You want to figure out a way to make it even keeled. So how do you do that? So if you find yourself in this scenario, you have to know the following, that no matter how great the relationship appears to be, you have to spend quality time dating each other and getting to know each other while you're in the same town. So instead of these quick stunts that are so intense, don't be so intense about those moments that you're together in the same town. Allow them to exist as if even keeled, as if you're just dating. And the fantasies that exist in your mind can only be dispelled if you spend time talking and sincerely discovering who the other person really is. And this includes tackling the problem areas that usually get swept under the rug, like the serious stuff. So if you are dating someone long distance, I encourage you to take a good, serious look beneath the surface. Both you and your potential mate deserve at least that. You also want to make sure that the person is relating to you, and once again, not an image of you, not who he or she thinks you are and who they want you to be. Because what ends up happening is that even though the image is important, it can't sustain a lasting, healthy marriage, a lasting, healthy relationship. And as painful as it is to admit to ourselves, it's better to make a sober decision early than to suffer the shock of the mask being taken off once it's too late. So that's the three ideas behind image. The next thing I want to talk about, and I mistakenly started talking about in the beginning of tonight's talk, but which something that I think is very important, is values and goals. Values and goals, how important are they in a relationship? Time has proven over and over again that when the excitement of a new relationship starts to wear off, when those last few twigs burn out, your goals and your values suddenly become more glaring. They become more obvious. no matter how great the initial chemistry is, if your values are on two different pages, the odds of your relationship working decrease significantly. So what is a value? A value, in essence, is the bedrock ideals. There are convictions regarding what to believe, what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, what is important or desirable. Values express our highest priorities. There are motivation. There are driving forces. Most people hold specific values very close to their hearts. Values are intrinsic truths. And that's why people will fight for their values. Some people will even die for their values. So think about in your mind, in your heart, what are those things that motivate you? What are those things that quote unquote you would die for? And since values are an expression of our internal self, compromising on our values is really on some level a negation of self. And that's why people experience so many backlashes when they compromise their values. There's been endless studies on this, and they've proven that value conflict is one of the most destructive elements in a relationship. There's a book called The Unexpected Legacy of Divorce by Dr. Judith Wallerstein. And in the book, she says that many people divorce because they have come to abhor the lifestyle and values of their partner. So the obvious question is, why aren't people more careful? Why don't we just check out our value compatibility, since it's an explosive issue and since it has the potential to lead to a breakup or a divorce? Why don't we treat it with more importance in our lives? And I think the answer goes back to infatuation. When people are attracted, when they have that attraction, and you know what I mean, they're blinded. And I think that they fall into one of four traps. This is what I was saying before, out of place. Number one is they don't know their values. They can't tell you what their non-negotiables are, what their values are. Number two is they're so caught up in the moment that by the time the dating couple talks values, they're already too emotionally involved. Number three, they're consciously avoiding thinking about the value conflict because they don't want to lose the chemistry. And number four, they recognize the differences in values, but naively believe that love can conquer all, or more correctly, infatuation can conquer all. So somebody once came to me for advice, let's call him Jimmy. And he says to me that he recently started to think seriously about his future and just how important goals and values are. And he says, I'm in the process of defining mine. He tells me he's been dating this Melanie for almost 2 years, and they're planning on getting married. But we've never really discussed goals and values. And he says, when I brought up the subject, she got very defensive. She said, how am I supposed to know what my values are? And maybe this is what you're thinking as well. How am I supposed to know what my values are? And Jimmy didn't know what to answer her. And I explained to him that she didn't have to pressure herself to figure it all out now. Nobody said you have to figure it all out now. But she didn't have to write an entire values thesis. But she did need to start getting in touch with her values. Why should she get in touch with her values? And I told him there are 5 benefits to getting in touch with your values, and I'll talk about it in a second. So Jimmy sits down with Melanie, and they start discussing these points. And the conversation went more smoothly than he thought, but the next question was, how do I get in touch with my values? Does everyone have them? And my answer to you is yes. Everyone has values. And it could be for some reason that we have gone so off kilter in our life that we can't even think about what our values are. For some people, it's obvious. It's on the tip of their tongue. You ask them, boom, this is my non-negotiable. For some people, they don't even know where to start. There's a Dr. Nathaniel Brandon. He's one of America's leading experts on self-esteem, and he talks about this in his book, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. He writes that a concern with morality and ethics arises naturally in the early stages of our development. Inherent in our existence and humanity is the question, what kind of being should I seek to become? By what principles should I guide my life? What are the values worth pursuing? And as we get better in touch with ourselves, we get more in touch with our core values. And some of us have to think about them more consciously, and some of us don't have to think about them more consciously because it's obvious to us. On December 17th, 2006, the New York Times featured a very popular article, actually one of the most popular articles ever in the New York Times. It was called Questions Couples Should Ask or Wish They Had Before Marrying. And it's a fascinating article. You can look it up. It begins by saying that relationship experts report that too many couples fail to ask each other critical questions before getting married. And they go on to talk about 15 questions. And almost all of the questions that the article discusses are value-oriented. And I'm just going to talk about a few of them. You can look up the article yourself, or maybe I'll send you a link to it later. Things like bringing up children, financial obligations and goals, including spending and saving money, how you spend money, how the household will be run, spiritual beliefs and needs, how much religious or moral education there should be in the home, boundaries with in-laws, commitment to marriage bond. These are considered serious discussions. Now, in the same edition of the New York Times, Eric Kopaj wrote an article called Marriage is Not Built on Surprises. And there he says that for too many couples, the spouses assume that they know each other and the ground rules for their marriages, without even saying, well, of course we have the same ground rules for marriage. And sometimes, he says, those heading to the altar dodge important questions because they don't want to rock the boat. I have to agree with him. From my experience, I find that too many couples are scared of what I call ruining a good thing, or what they call ruining a good thing. I think it's really important, and early on in the relationship, of having a serious conversation about values is crucial. But people think that if I have that conversation about values, it's going to mess up the chemistry that we have. And what I would say is, for those couples, I call it one date glorified. There's a process to a relationship, and rupturing it with a healthy values conversation is going to help it progress and become either stronger or weaker. But either way, you want your relationship to progress, whether it's stronger or weaker. It's immensely better to know where you stand than to err and think that everything is fine when you don't really know, where you can't really say what's really going on in our relationship. I'll tell you how far I've thought about this and how far I've gone with this. Right now, if someone asks me to officiate their wedding ceremony, I tell them that I would love to, but I will only do it if you go through a premarital program. It could be mine or another. I went around and looked for premarital programs. I figured, my gosh, the Jewish community is so big and so well established. There must be some kind of premarital program out there. I looked in the Orthodox community. I looked in the very religious, in the modern, the secular, reform, conservative, you name the label. I looked everywhere, could not find one premarital program created for rabbis. There's 60 Christian programs that I found, not one Jewish program. And it was shocking to me. because I came to this realization when I was standing at a chuppah and I had the cup of wine in my hand. And I'm looking at the cup and I look up at this beautiful couple standing in front of me under the chuppah. And I'm about to make the blessing on this union. And I think to myself, I'm about to bless this union. What did I do to deserve to bless this union? I mean, fine, I went to rabbinical school and I have the title rabbi, but I didn't do anything for this couple. What did I do to set up this couple standing in front of me for a long-lasting and healthy relationship? And at that moment, I said, from here on, every couple I marry, I want them to have a toolbox. Just a little toolbox that they can refer to. Marriage, long-lasting relationships are not easy. They need a toolbox. And so I ended up going through a whole process. Today, I have a 45-minute questionnaire that each of them complete, and I do a full analysis of the relationship, the strengths and weaknesses. Every relationship has strengths and weaknesses. And what I say to the couples is, it's really great to know the strengths and the weaknesses of your relationship before you get into a relationship. So about 4 months ago, I had a couple in my office. They both had filled out the questionnaire. They came to my office because I was going to give them the results of the questionnaire. Now, I ask lots of different questions in there. One of the questions that I ask in there, how many kids do you want? Now, you'd think, this is a couple that was dating for 2 years and they'd already been engaged for 6 months. You'd think they would know that. Well, I'm going through this questionnaire. He says 0 and she says 3. So they step into my office and we are going to have what I would call one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had with a couple. Thank God, after an hour and a half, we came to the understanding that they would have a kid. She wanted 3, he wanted 0. I said 0 to 1 is harder than 3 to 1. So we went on one. And at the end of the day, what matters is whatever God said, whatever God wishes, and everything is theoretical at that point. You know, people think it's such a big deal, but it needs to be a conversation. I mean, if he doesn't want to have children, that's a very big deal and something they hadn't had a conversation about. And she says to me, I asked her, I said, how is it possible that you know this guy for 2.5 years and you never had this conversation? And she says to me point blank, I didn't want to ruin a good thing. Well, relationships are real. They're not a game. They're something that's so beautiful and so incredible for your future. And they end a very difficult loneliness. And at the end of the day, so many of us right now feel that loneliness being single. It's been so much more exaggerated through this whole COVID process. And I think that it's really, really important to be realistic about it and not to be fake about it. I'll tell you another story. I think that just another story to prove how couples gloss over having what I would call difficult conversations. Let's call this guy Daniel. He's serious about getting married. And he approaches me and asks me for some assistance with dating. And early in our conversation, I asked him what his goals and his values are. And he responds to me, I'm so glad that you asked that question. So when I asked him to explain his excitement, he told me that he had been married before, and his first marriage only lasted 2 years. And although he and his ex-wife had dated for a while, and even though they had spent a lot of time together, they hardly spoke about goals and values. And they were simply too busy having fun, as he said. And the only serious discussion lasted a few minutes. Do you want to have kids one day? Yeah. Do you? Yeah. And then she said, do you have any interest in religion? Yeah, I think maybe I'd become a little more religiously involved in the future. What about you? I don't know. And that was it. That was the entire extent of their serious conversation. Nothing was said about how soon into the marriage they wanted to have kids. Nothing was clarified about how serious his interests in religion were. Nothing was said about his own issues or her own issues with religion. And once they got married, their issues quickly rose to the surface. And they started to argue about when to start a family, and they had completely different visions. And every time he picked up a book on religion, she became anxious and started badgering him with questions. Well, he says this marriage crashed quickly and painfully. So in order for a solid foundation in a relationship, you need to spend some quality time figuring out your own values. And if you haven't already done so, I think that it's important for you to do that. So what I did tonight, and I don't think I was thinking of doing it with you here, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna send it to you after tonight's talk. I'm gonna send a follow-up to tonight's talk, and I created a 3-step process to help you figure out what are your essential values. And it's really important that you identify which values are more important than others. So on my list that I'm gonna send you, I actually give you 40 ideas of what values are. And then in step 2, you take those values and you actually define them. And you start asking yourselves some really great questions. And these are great questionnaires. I know over the course of the past classes, for those of you who have been following some of the past classes over the past few months, you know that we've been talking about a number of different questionnaires. And I know many of you have asked me for those questionnaires, and I've been happily giving you those. Well, here's my next questionnaire for you. This is gonna be called the values questionnaire. And in there, not only am I gonna give you the values, but I'm also gonna give you 8 identifying questions that are gonna help you define your values. And once you do that, I think it's gonna really change your ideas of the kind of person you're looking for. It may even possibly, from my experience, change the kind of person you're attracted to. I think there are 5 benefits to defining your values. Number 1, this is my opinion, stress relief. A major source of stress in relationships is value conflict. Clarifying and living according to your values is an essential way to diminish stress. Maybe the word values is difficult for you. Maybe that's where, because I have this feeling that maybe I'm not connecting with some of you on this word values. Like, what is it? It's just your non-negotiables. It's who you are authentically, instead of this image or this idea or the kind of person you're portraying because of the game that you're playing, the dating game that you're playing. So it really, knowing who you are authentically, knowing your non-negotiables is really a great way to relieve a lot of the pressure and the stress around dating. Number 2, it increases fulfillment. If you live according to your values, it brings you a certain sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. And when you honor your values, especially when it's difficult, you're going to experience your own integrity. And I think there are very few things in life that are equally fulfilling than being able to experience your authentic integrity. Number 3, I think that it creates easier decision-making. Your values, your non-negotiables are your guiding lights. They determine the correctness of decisions and choices. Number 4, prioritization. Having values enables you to prioritize your activities and your responsibilities. And this is because values determine what is most important to us. And number 5, clarity. Being clear on your values, being clear on your non-negotiables will help bring your goals and your dreams and your visions into focus. This is something that is very deep within Jewish thought. Within Jewish thought, there's this idea of cheshbon hanefesh, the idea of doing this kind of review and going through your authentic and getting in touch with yourself. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go into it in great detail tonight, but at some point I'd like to go into the idea of cheshbon hanefesh. In any case, that is the formal element of my talk for tonight. There's definitely so many more things that I can talk about, but just to summarize, the main things that I spoke about tonight. Number one, I spoke about the idea of dating a person and not an image. And there are so many ways that we date an image. First, with physical appearance, pictures, for example, or the idea of profession. I told a story like that, or financial status, or a person, who the person reminds us of. Then I went into the bulldozers, people who want to mold and shape the person they're dating or the person they're in a relationship with to the person who they want to. Not only is the image so strong, they want to actually turn you into their image, or you want to turn them into your image of who they are. Then I spoke about long distance relationships, which I know some of you have some more questions, and I'm happy to get to those in the second hour of tonight. Then I went into values and goals. Values and goals, people who fall into traps, who don't know their values and goals. Then I spoke about some research, the New York Times article about how important it is to have those values and goals, and what they are. I'm going to send you some notes on this all later, so you don't have to worry about writing it down. Then I spoke about the exercise that I'm going to send you later, which is going to be how to create your non-negotiables and your values and goals, and the benefits of doing it. And that is the summary of tonight's talk. What I'm going to do is I have a number of you that have sent me questions before tonight's talk. So I'm going to start by going through those questions, and then I will go through questions up here. So please use the chat box, write your questions. I will try to get to every single question that is here tonight. Okay. The first question that I have is, how long does infatuation last for generally? How do I know if I'm infatuated or if I actually like the person? That is a fantastic question. So infatuation depends on what kind of infatuation it is. If you weren't here for my talk, I did an hour talk on infatuation. You can look through my past classes, which I will send you a link to in my follow-up of tonight, and you can get that talk on infatuation, which will give you more. But just in a summary, there's two types of infatuation. There's infatuation which is in your imagination. Your imagination will last for as long as you want it to last. Now, if you're actually not infatuated with the person on a one-sided level, like you're not just totally enthralled with the person, then how do you know if you're there is going to be, in the beginning of every relationship, there is a certain level of infatuation. You want that infatuation, or what they call the honeymoon period, you want to get rid of it as fast as possible. A lot of people, they're scared of getting rid of it because they don't want to ruin a good thing. So what ends up happening is they get into this mode where they don't want the infatuation. They're actually perpetuating the infatuation. So how do you know if you really like the person? The best thing to do, if you can, and I recommend this to a lot of couples, is you cut off communication for a week. The Rebbe said this. This is what the Rebbe said that people should do. You cut off all communication, no texting, no calling, no seeing each other, nothing for a week. And you see if you miss the person. And then you know if it's true. Do you miss the person? Is there something missing within you? Does the person fill a certain void within you? And do you miss that person when you're not with them? Well, then it's probably a little more authentic than it is infatuated. Somebody made a comment about Helen Fisher in her research that she says, over the eons, across culture and in social strata, generally speaking, men are attracted to women who are youthful looking, healthy and fertile. Women are re-attracted to men who have resources, power, and prestige, depending on how the culture defined those attributes. She does say that. I have seen her say that, but I think that today we have to be very, very careful about how we define age differences within relationships. I think it's maybe for a different conversation. I do have, if you go look at my Q&As online, I have a list of a lot of, and I talk about, somebody asked me a question about somebody they were dating that was 20 years older than them. And I gave a very long, detailed answer there. I'd hope that a couple can be at ease around each other, being sincere and real with themselves. It's a great hope, but I think that a lot of people don't even realize that they're not being real and sincere when they're dating. Because there's a certain level of, it's the way that the dating process has been created for us in our lives. Our society has this very strange, infatuated dating process, and because of that, I wish that's the way it was, but often it's not that way. I guess it must be weird to date your therapist, i.e. bulldozer. Yeah, I would say that it's very weird to date somebody or anyone who's in a very strong position to be able to, you're not really dating them. It's actually not possible for you to be dating them. Okay. How long is reasonable until one can date, until one knows that he or she is the one? Well, it could be 3 dates. It could be 3 months. It could be 3 years. It really depends on you. It's not the dating itself. It's the stages of dating that you go through. There's a process to dating, which means if you're spending all your time having fun and you're not having a serious conversation, the relationship is going to just be, and what usually happens, what I find, is that there's a lot of one date glorified. That's what ends up happening because people are not getting to the next level. There's a process to the dating. There's a process to serious dating that goes beyond just having fun and being able to have the chemistry, which is very important. I'm not saying physical attraction isn't important. I'm not saying that chemistry is not important, but there's something that is more important there, and that is allowing the relationship to progress, allowing there to be, for two separate people to create a wholeness, to create a unit. And there's a process to how that works. Somebody else asked, does alone time count as a value? That's very interesting. So last class, I did speak about the big 5, and I did speak about introverts versus extroverts. You must be an introvert, the person asking to me. So if for introverts, alone time is a value because it's one of your core principles. So yes, absolutely. Here's another question here. I'm talking with a wonderful lady in Israel. She's really great in many ways. She's pretty much everything I'm looking for, yet I'm not attracted to her. And I'm trying to figure out if I'm too picky or I'm just naturally not attracted to her. How can I determine this? Determine a true issue. My answer to you is, from my experience, now I have to generalize. I don't know the details of what that means. If we had a one-on-one conversation, I would probably ask you some very specific questions. But based on what you're telling me in this little paragraph of a question, I'm going to say that you probably have an unrealistic version of what attraction is. You probably find over the years, you've probably developed a certain kind of person that is completely unrealistic for you, that you're attracted to. This person doesn't meet the image in your mind of who you think is important. And as a result of that, you say that you're not attracted to her. I think one of the advantages of COVID is that we have the ability to be authentically attracted to people because we're taking that very strong chemistry element, we're being next to each other, out of the equation for a lot of people with the phone and Skype and Zoom and FaceTime dating. So if she's everything you're looking for, and you're being honest about the fact that she's everything you're looking for, but you're not attracted to her. If she doesn't, which means if you look at her, you're probably dating her through Zoom or Skype. Okay, I'll say this anyway. If you look at her and you're not like, she doesn't, you don't say, oh, I cannot handle the way this woman looks. Then I would say that you probably are attracted to her, because of your unrealistic value of attraction. Somebody else said mood killing and turn off conversations. I guess that is what they're calling serious conversations. Agree that they're healthy conversations. Yeah, maybe they are mood killing and turn off. But again, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a one night stand, or are you looking for a long-term relationship? Another person adding one more question above. Would it be possible for me to become attracted to her if we continue talking via video chat? I would hope that the person who's asking this question, or anyone who has a question like this, is not so vain that developing a relationship and more conversation won't allow them to become attracted. I mean, that should be, as you develop your relationship, you should automatically start becoming more attracted to a person. I mean, that's how relationships develop. It doesn't happen overnight. Everything in our society is created for just meeting. And the funny thing is, I set up a lot of dates. And I find a lot of, I'm always fascinated by why people won't go out with someone. They'll say things like, I know the person. Really, you know them? What's their favorite color? What do you know about them? What, you saw them at an event across the room? You've gone to a number of events together? You were at a speed dating, so for 3 minutes, and now you know them? You don't know anything about them. But we know each other. Or there's all these excuses that are created, or we're just not for each other, or we're not physically. Really, you decided based on a picture of a person that you're not physically attracted to the person. Wow, that was an incredible statement that you had right there. That is shocking to me. When you meet someone, it doesn't mean that you're married to them for life. It's just a meeting. It's just a phone call. It's just a Zoom or FaceTime chat. It's just a cup of coffee if you're able to do that in today's world. That's it. So it's so funny how we think when we're in the process of finding someone, we're already thinking 10 steps ahead. But while we're in the relationship, we're thinking 10 steps back. So what I think is we got to change our perspective. When we're looking for someone, we have to remember that we're not getting married to them. It's just, am I interested in dating them? Am I interested in the cup of coffee? Am I interested in spending an hour of my life with this person for the potential? That's all I'm saying. And then after that hour, or after that 2 hours, or however long that first conversation or date lasts, am I interested in a second date? And after the second date, am I interested in a third date? That's it. It's not, am I interested, is this person have a future for me? Don't start jumping the gun. And then the opposite, when you're in the relationship, don't start going backwards. You want to develop that relationship. You want to see if you're not attracted. Yes, the attraction, love will grow. Attraction can build up. It's possible. I would hope so. I mean, if everybody was super attracted to everybody they married the moment they saw them, what's going to happen in 20 years from now? So relationships need to be an evolution. They need to be a process. Otherwise, relationship will last 2 days or 2 hours. But if we're looking for a long-term relationship, then we have no choice but to allow it to be a process. Is being frum a value, or is it merely a prerequisite of consideration? Very good question. Religious value is a value. It's a non-negotiable. So religiosity, and obviously in today's day and age, there's a lot of different levels of religiosity. I would say it definitely is a non-negotiable value. And I think it's important that you qualify and quantify what that means to you, where it fits into your life, what are the non-negotiables of religious life in your life, and how that works. So being frum is a very broad term. Being religious is a very broad term. You need to define that. And in my process, when you create your values, in my questionnaire that I'm going to send you, you'll have the ability to actually identify what exactly that religious value is. Okay, next question. Is it wrong if a girl that I really like from Shabbat dinners in person only wants to be friends with me? Or is that a good initial response? I don't understand the whole friend zone thing. here's what I'm going to say about platonic relationships. I'm speaking generalization. Don't jump at me all at once. But I know some of you are not going to like what I'm going to say. I first speak to the women, and I'm generalizing. Generally speaking, there's no such thing as a platonic relationship with a man. Men don't want to be your friend. Now I speak to the men. When women say they want you to be their friend, they're not ready to get into a serious relationship. They're usually friend zoning, and it's because they're afraid of a relationship, and it has nothing to do with you. So I say to the men, don't take the bait, and I say to the women, don't take the bait either. Men don't want to be your friend, and I say to the men is don't try to start creating this fake friendship thing with the women, thinking that eventually she's gonna she's gonna be into you and she's gonna be interested in you, because it's probably not true. She's not ready for whatever reason. You're not gonna become better friends with her and all of a sudden one day. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's very rare that it happens. How do you determine if someone is dating you or who they think you are or who they want you to be? Well, how do you know that? So if you're someone is asking, most of the time, I would say it's pretty obvious. If it's not obvious to you, then you probably haven't done any of the 3 questionnaires that I've sent you. You haven't figured out who you're looking for, you haven't figured out who you are, and you haven't figured out what kind of values you have. Now this new one. If you are clear about who you are and you're very confident about that, that's going to come across in your dating, and you're going to know if the person you're dating is looking at you as an image or as a person. And the best thing that you can do in the dating process is to be authentically you. If you're able to be authentically you, then you will end up the person that you're in the relationship with will have to also be authentically themselves. It works that way if it's a relationship. If it's not a real relationship, then it's a game, then, well, I can't talk to that. Okay, next question. If I need to take time off to reevaluate the relationship, what is a good time length? Should communication continue on a basic level? 1 week. I always say 1 week tells you a lot. No communication. You cut off completely and you say. The reason why, however you say it, it depends on how you're doing it and what level the relationship is at. But it's totally okay. We're not taking off now. If you're secular, you're not saying I'm going to go see other people. I'm not checking out the world. I'm just seeing if I miss you. So you can't get texts from the person every morning and wonder if you miss them or not. So it needs to be completely cut off for that week or 5 days or however it is. Whatever time you decide, that time needs to be completely cut off. And you have to ask yourself, do I see my life as missing something without that particular person? That's a very powerful, very real, very strong statement that you can say. The person says here, this is more of a comment, but I'll read the comment. I find a person's speaking voice important. Either it's neutral, very attractive, or a turn-off. Okay? I've met people online. I'm attracted to their photos and pile, but when I hear their voice, I'm totally tuned off. So attraction is more than physical outward appearance. It's what they have to say about this, and I mean to write profile and not pile. Yeah, it's a very good point that you say, and I think that for women generally speaking, have many more stages than men of how they find attraction, where men are much more black and white or color, however you want to put it. Okay, next question. Let's say you have your values down. You know what you're looking for. You've done hishtadlus, okay, which means you've done your preparation in many ways. You watch as your single friends dwindle. Most of the shidduchim read to you are off. Does that mean that it's not the right time? Well, we're talking about shidduchim. We're talking about a religious person here. So, and I apologize for you very religious people that I haven't focused on you enough. We have such a wide range of people that are here, and I want to make sure that everybody gets something out of tonight's talk. So what I will say to you is that it's not a good idea to start comparing yourself. Don't start thinking, oh my gosh, all my friends are dwindling. That's not fair to you. Your time will come. It just hasn't happened yet. So the first thing is, don't compare yourself to the people, your friends who've gotten married. It's not fair to you. That was their time, and your time will come. Now let's talk about your time, right time or not right time. If you're getting offers of shidduchim and they don't match you, there's one of two things that are wrong. Either the shadchan is wrong or you're wrong. Now, you can't control the shadchan, the matchmaker. So maybe the information that the matchmaker has gotten is wrong. Because you can't be, if you're saying I haven't gotten any offers, nothing, then I'm going to say, well, there's something wrong. You got to get out there and get some offers, because there's people. There's girls out there and there's boys out there. Whoever says there's a shidduch crisis, they're wrong. There's no crisis. It's just, you got to get out there. But you're saying that you're actually getting offers and they're wrong. So somebody has the wrong information and you have to fix that. Maybe if you have a profile or a resume, maybe that's wrong and it needs to be fixed. Or maybe the matchmaker is right and you are the common denominator in all the people that you've rejected. Maybe you have to, even if you don't think it's right because you have a certain image in your mind of the person you're looking for, maybe you got to give that person a chance. Maybe you need someone else to do the research for you so that the people that are getting offered to you have a chance. Just saying, just a thought. Take it or leave it. How do you engage in the process of dating as you describe? This is if the woman, one, is interested and lives far away. How do you do this during the era of COVID? I've been getting this question a lot. I don't have a clear answer. That's a generalization of how do you date in the era of COVID. I think that with technology, it's really possible to have a real conversation. I mean, look, would it be better if we were able to have this in person tonight? Maybe, maybe not. I try the best I can to bring my authentic self across in the video. I hope it's come across. I'm trying to do the best I can. I am behind the screen and you're also behind the screen. But I do think there's a possibility of two people being able to have a conversation and there being a certain authenticity in that conversation. And I think it actually focuses the two people. Now, if you are able to do it through Zoom or FaceTime, and it's like this, I'm looking at the screen and you're looking at the screen, then we can have a real conversation. If you're in the process and you're looking down at your phone at the same time, you're looking there, you're on the phone, you're not totally focused, then that's the problem with a lot of these, the dating on the phone, is because the person's not really there. But if you're really focused, as you would be in person, and you bring your authentic self across, I think to a certain extent, this COVID dating is a gift, because I think it'll allow us to get into a clearer, more perspective-based conversation and relationship without the worry of that physical or, that unrealistic lust element that happens when two people are in the same room. Not a question for the group, but I wanted to know if I can get in touch with you and can I find a good match? It's really simple. For those of you, it's very simple. I use a system called jmontreal.com. Just go on. If you're anywhere in North America, you can use it. It's going to ask you for a marketing code. Use marketing code Rabbi's Gift. One word, Rabbi's Gift, and it's free, completely free. That is where I organize all my dates. This week, I set up 39 dates this week, actual 39 first dates. So COVID has been fantastic. There's a lot of great people looking to get on a date. If you're not on jmontreal.com, I encourage you to get on. Use marketing code Rabbi's Gift, and that is the easiest way for me to be able to match. You have my email because I sent you an email before this class, and if you want, you can email me. I try to get back to everyone. If I haven't gotten back to you, there's probably a reason why I haven't gotten back to you, but I will try to get back to everybody in a timely fashion who have reached out to me. How do you fix what you call unrealistic value of attraction? As I guess I am in it. How do you fix it? What a good question. If you are unrealistic, well, there's a lot of different ways you can fix it. It depends on why you're unrealistic. You need to ask yourself, what's unrealistic? Is it that I have a certain image in my mind? The first thing I would do is, if you haven't done my 5 steps to knowing who you're looking for, I would encourage you to do that questionnaire. I sent it out, but I can send it out to you. Just email me and I'll send it to you, the 5 steps. It's really important as part of doing that questionnaire that you don't go ahead, that you go when you have to finish step 1 before you go on to step 2. That's the only way that it works. And people who have done it can probably attest to that. The only way it's going to work. And I think that the first thing you have to do is you have to be realistic about the person you're looking for. So many people are completely unrealistic. I have seen lists, I have read profiles, I have read resumes, and I think to myself, what the heck is this person talking about? Why are they looking for this kind of person? That is completely unrealistic. I mean, I say that in my head because I have the opportunity to read hundreds, maybe at this point, thousands of resumes. So, or profiles. So I know when I read something, if it's realistic or unrealistic, but I can't tell you that. You have to figure it out yourself. So I can give you questionnaires, I can give you things to think about, I can try to help focus you, but this is going to be a process that you're going to have to figure out yourself. Maybe if you're having trouble figuring out yourself, maybe you need some therapy or you need some coaching, and that's always available. How do you pick the right time to have these serious conversations? It never seems right, especially moving on. If you're in a serious relationship, one of you has to say, you know what, Tom, you know what, Shlomi, you know what, Esther, you know what, Dudski, we got to have a serious conversation. Oh, no. Does that mean we're breaking up? No, I'm saying we need to talk about our future and have a serious conversation. And as somebody said, it's what did someone say before? It's like it's not fun. It's not exciting, but yeah, relationship has to be balanced. It can't all be fun and games. There needs to be. So is there ever a right time? Probably never a right time, and probably always a right time, but it's as right as you make it. And especially if you're able to, in a way, say to the person that you're in the relationship with or the person you're dating, I think it's important. If you're in a very religious circumstance, and you have a matchmaker who's following you and guiding you, the matchmaker will say, you know, this is time for fun and games, and this is time for serious talk. So different dates will have different messages to them, and that's a good matchmaker will help guide that, so you don't have to do it yourself. But if you're in the secular world or you're dating yourself and you're on your own, then you're going to have to figure out a way to bring it up. It's so important. Based on what principle do you set the dating match? Oh, you want the secrets of matchmaking. One day, I will do a session called Confessions of a Matchmaker, and I will tell you all of my secrets so that you too can become a great matchmaker. I recently started working on it because I've been doing a bunch of matchmaker training programs. We're working on creating this matchmaker training institute. So I've been working on training matchmakers, so I'm getting all of my madness into a method. So one day I will share that with you also. As you know, if I know it, I will do my best to share it with you. Okay. Next question. There's a lot of great questions here. And I have the questions by email. The people who sent me questions by email, I'm going to get to those too very soon. What should one do if a woman in a long distance relationship has had multiple good phone conversations, She says she doesn't want to do video calls because I don't do well on video calls. What if the relationship has gone backwards because the frequency of phone calls have diminished to 0 and texts an infrequent once a month? If your relationship has gone backwards and she is, what do they call it? Ghosting you? I think that's the word that they use today. That's a problem. And I would recommend that someone's got to make a move, and it's okay, because either the relationship will get stronger or weaker. Like I said before, rupture in a relationship, if it's in a new relationship or if it's in a more established relationship. I say it to married couples also. Rupture in a relationship is a good thing. It's not bad. So someone's got to make the move. Say, well, you haven't been calling me. You haven't been texting me. Once a month is not a relationship for me. I need something more than this. If she says, I don't have time now, that's a fair statement. Maybe she doesn't have time for a relationship. Maybe she's doing something really important and she can't get into a relationship. But why is she stringing you along for no reason? And I don't do well on video calls. You can say that for the first date, but you can't say that if you've already had a number of calls. Eventually, you got to do video calls, especially if it's a long distance relationship. I don't believe in that kind of business. Doesn't make any sense to me. Is there anything you would say you value in the non-Jewish world of dating that we can incorporate in the Jewish world of dating? I'm not sure the nature of that question. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of ways that I would answer that. I'm going to ask you if you can clarify that question. I think it's really important that I just want to know where you're coming from because there's a lot of different ways I can go in answering that question. So if you want to write it again, clarified, I'll get to it. Okay. What do you do if you feel like you're deeply damaged and if the idea of marriage is terrifying to you? Yeah, it's I've talked about this before. If you're from a divorced home, you have to figure out 3 things. You have to figure out if you're or divorce, I mean, if your parents are fighting a lot, if they weren't getting along, which means you don't have a good role model for relationships. That's a really important thing. You have to figure out why your parents got divorced or why they fought a lot. How do you figure that out? I know what you're thinking. Ask your parents. Don't ask your parents. It doesn't matter. It's your internal monologue. It's you're the person who's deeply damaged. So you got to figure out why in your mind. You got to go through that process and figure out why did they get divorced? Why were they fighting? Number 2 is you have to say it wasn't my fault. So many kids of divorces, of difficult marriages think that it was their fault. It's never the child's fault, and you have to just say it 10 times in your head until you believe it. It's not my fault. And number 3, which is the most important thing, you have to figure out what you're going to do differently. I definitely recommend therapy. If you're deeply damaged, and you don't have a good role model for a relationship, you got to learn it. A lot of things that are innate to people who grew up in a loving home with 2 loving parents, which are innate and they have a role model and they know what a healthy marriage looks like. Today, it's not as common with people that didn't grow up in that environment. And so therefore, you have to learn it yourself. You're not going to learn it by picking up a book. You need to have someone that you speak to. And it's okay, a therapist, a mentor, a rabbi, a coach, somebody who can guide you properly and give you a good perspective on what a healthy relationship looks like. Marriage and relationships are a wonderful thing. There's nothing, in my humble opinion, as amazing as a long-term relationship. And if you have a blockage because you're deeply damaged, as you say, then this is a great opportunity to kind of face yourself and say, how can I get through that? How can I unblock it? And there's so many great ways of doing that. How can somebody help a matchmaker if the matchmaker has been unsuccessful over time? Well, it depends on what kind of matchmaker. Professional matchmaker should be able to, I'm assuming that if the matchmaker is not setting you up with people, again, I'm going to say what I said before. It's either your problem or their problem. The best thing is to blame yourself first. The first thing, instead of going initially to blame the matchmaker, or in any situation, blaming the other person, the best thing to do is to start by blaming yourself. Ask yourself, am I the problem? And then go through that process. Maybe I'm looking for the wrong thing. Maybe I didn't communicate properly what I'm looking for. So it could be that I would say 9 times out of 10, it's our problem. And that 1 out of 10 where it's the matchmaker's problem, then you can find a different matchmaker, or you can maybe figure out a way to have a conversation with the matchmaker and see if that person can help you. The truth is, between me and you, the best matches happen between friends. And if you have a friend that can set you up, that's much better than any matchmaker. And that's speaking from as someone, I don't even consider myself a matchmaker, but someone who makes a lot of matches. I still think friends setting up friends is the best idea. What is the best age difference between spouses? And it is better for the man or the woman to be older. It's all over the place. It depends on the person. I would say, what's the best maturity level? That would be maybe a better question. I will not set up anyone more than 10 years apart. So when I'm very open about it. I think that, people come to me in their 50s and they're looking for somebody who's in their 20s, go somewhere else. That's not here. That's not, more than 10 years in my opinion is too much. I know there's stories of people that have successful relationships and they're more than 10 years apart. I'm proud of them. I'm happy for them. It's not in my world. I don't do it. And there's very strong reasons for it. I'm not going to go through my whole spiel right now of why I think that, but at some point I'm happy to go through the spiel again. If you were here in the last class, I went through the whole spiel. If a happy relationship seems to plateau, what could be the reason and why should we move forward? I love this question. Happy relationships that plateau. I call it dating to death. Sometimes you're in a relationship and you just need to go to the next level. You need to go to the next level. Relationships need to progress over time. There's a process. There's a courtship. There's getting to know each other, going through the process, the courtship. Then there's an engagement and a marriage. If you're in a great relationship and it's plateauing, you probably, and you're saying that it's great, you probably are ready for engagement. Oh, but you say, he's not popping the question. Well, guess what? Equal opportunity. We're in a world of equal opportunity. You pop the question. Get him a watch or something, get down on a knee and pop the question to him. If he's not going to ask you, why can't you ask him? Come on. This is equal opportunity world. We finished all the chivalry and all of that, right? I know the women want everything. They want equal opportunity and they want the guy to get down on a knee. I understand that. But at the same time, you're going to date to death and you're going to mess up something very good because the guy's afraid to ask the question because he's afraid he doesn't know what you're going to answer. So either make sure he knows that if he asks you, you're going to say yes, or ask him yourself. That's what I'm saying. What if a person is not a good conversationalist? Oh, that's a great question. I always say the people who aren't the good conversationalists are the best spouses. The people who are really good and they're really good daters. Everything you need to be a good dater is exactly the opposite of everything you need to be in a happy and successful relationship, long term. So if you're not a good conversationalist, push yourself. And you can be honest. I love the idea of being in a relationship with someone and saying, I'm really not good at conversation. Just say it. Say the thing. What's the game about? Just say it. I'm really not good at this. Why can't you be honest and open and show your true self? Yes, relationships take a little bit of vulnerability. It's okay to be vulnerable. Yes, you may get your heart let down again or for the first time. I don't know. It's possible. But you're never going to get anywhere if you're not a little bit vulnerable. If you don't show a little bit of your authentic self, you're not going to get anywhere. Think of me tonight. Imagine if this was a monotone conversation. Here I am trying to talk to you through a screen. I have to show a certain part of my authentic self. I have to be honest and open about it. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here an hour and a half later watching this, being here, listening, having that internal dialogue, whatever's going on in your minds right now as I'm talking. Vulnerability is such a powerful thing. I would say being vulnerable is the most important element of dating. Maybe I should have said that earlier. Well, I'm going to say it now. Being vulnerable is the most important part of dating. And the only way is you have to put your authentic self there. Just call it, say it. This is weird. This is awkward. I've never heard of a first date that wasn't awkward. It's awkward. There's no way to unawkwardize a first date. It's going to be awkward no matter what you do, no matter if you're secular or you're religious, no matter where you are on the spectrum. First dates are awkward. So people are scared. But if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't put that authentic self, if you don't put that vulnerability out there, you're not going to get anywhere. I know it's tough. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to do it over and over again for those of you who've been dating a while. But maybe it's the same story, different face. Maybe it's the same thing happening to you over and over again because you haven't figured it out yet. Just saying. Is dating your spouse healthy after marriage? I've heard of this. Any suggestions? What do you mean? Spouses going on dates? It's wonderful. It's a great thing. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm assuming it's coming from somebody who's single because nobody ever asked me that who's married. So I'll leave that open-ended. Okay, here's a long question. For someone who's very into communication and who wants to skip the small talk and get straight to the real talk, it can be intimidating to others when dating, especially if the person is not dating in a religious shidduch style way. I'm not even talking about asking serious questions on a first date. Bad idea, by the way. Don't ask serious questions on a first date. But I do like seeing that a man has goals and values from the get-go. Again, as someone who is not dating in the religious shidduch style manner and who knows themselves well and what kind of home they want and their values, how do you find the balance between going with the flow and not wasting energy on a person who is not a good match? Apologies for the long comment question. Great question. Number one is, if you're getting set up by a matchmaker, even if it's not religious, make sure the matchmaker knows those things. Make sure that you write those in your profile so the matchmaker can very clearly understand the kind of person. So you want to get set up with a person, or if a friend is setting you up, you want to get set up with a person who the other person who's setting you up knows has those same values, so you can become vulnerable in that relationship. So you're going to have to, especially since you don't want to, you want to skip the small talk, so to speak, you're going to have to put your vulnerable self out there. And yeah, you could get hurt. It's true. But the odds are, if you got set up properly and the person has a reason why they're setting you up, and it's a good setup, that there'll be a good reason to put your vulnerable self out there. You still have to do a little small talk, but I understand. It could be that you've been set up with players. I hate that term, but I don't know no other term to say besides players. So it could be that you've been set up with players. Yeah, I hear you on that. It's really rough, but I think that you just need to make sure that you are clear with the kind of person that you're looking for. And I want to tell you, when I look through profiles and resumes, the clearer the person is, I don't want to see words like kind and nice and sweet. I have no idea what that means. Everybody wants somebody who's kind and nice and sweet and whatever other adjectives they use. I want something specific. Define it, explain it. Then it gives me, oh, that reminds me of someone. That's what you want. You want someone who's setting you up to see something in your profile or your resume that reminds them of someone else. How could we find a matchmaker? I'm happy to help you, or I'm happy. There's a lot of great matchmakers out there. I can help you, or I can refer you to another matchmaker. Either way, there's great people out there. If you're not on jmontreal.com, I encourage you to go on. If you haven't updated your profile in a while, go on there, update your profile. Okay. As you are aware, there are flaws in the shidduchim system. For example, it could be that maybe we focus too much on pictures without giving people a chance. Is there anything you see from the non-Jewish world of dating that would say we should learn from them to help the flaws in our system? What a great question. I don't know if we have to look at the non-Jewish dating or the Jewish dating. I think that we have to look at ourselves. Dating is a personal experience. It's not, are there ideas? And yeah, it's true that I live in both worlds. I'm setting people up in a very religious world and I'm setting people up in a very secular world. So I definitely see both, which maybe not a lot of matchmakers see that. I don't call myself a matchmaker, but people who are making matches don't always see that. They're very different. I think that, again, I find that no matter where you are, it becomes a vain process. People looking at pictures, people not looking at a person. When I set somebody up, I'm looking at the whole person. There's a reason why I'm setting that person up with that person. There's a whole story there. And so here I am spending time looking for the person, and the person just so easily, with a click of a button, puts an X on it. It says no. Why? They didn't like the picture. Well, at least spend as much time as I spent trying to see why there's a whole picture here, looking and seeing what's here. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe it's just a bad picture of the person. If I spoke multiple times with a woman on the phone, and then you see the person on a non-dating video event and disappointed with her looks, how do you know whether to continue on that relationship? How do I determine what weight to place on her appearance when otherwise I love her personality? Looks are important, not as important as personality. If you like her personality, the looks may grow. I told the story last class about somebody who I'd set up, and the guy came to me right before. He wanted to propose to her, but he didn't like her nose. He didn't like her nose. She had, I don't know what it was. He kept on like bugging me about it. So I spoke to her and she said, really? He doesn't like my nose? Okay, fine, I'll do a surgery. Anyway, they got married. And life happened. They had a kid or two. And at some point she says to him, I know I promised you when we got married that I would have a surgery on my nose. Well, I can do it now. He's like, no, don't do that. I love your nose. What happened? I don't know what happened. But I do think that attraction does grow. That I can tell you so many stories over the years of people who the attraction grew. And can you explain it? I don't know. Can I explain this guy who didn't want to marry her because of her nose? She promised to have a surgery. 2.5 years later, when she's ready to have a surgery because life got in the way, he's like, don't do that. I love your nose. And this story happens over and over again. So who knows why, what you were thinking, or what kind of circumstance, or what kind of lighting you saw that person in, and or what kind of picture you saw, or when you said it, you saw them in a video, how the video looked. You know, we gain 10 pounds automatically in video, so they say. Who knows why? I think that the person, if you like their personality, they deserve more of a chance than you randomly saw them in a video and you don't know what to do. I think you got to give them a better chance than that. And if you're just going to write people off like that, what are people going to do to you? Just saying. Okay. Yeah, there's a very interesting comment. Unfortunately, I have a lot of negative experience with matchmakers. They are often too concerned with making mistakes so that the process is more difficult than it should be. I so agree with that. And I think that it's really important that if a matchmaker does, if you have a valid reason, so a matchmaker sends you a profile, let's say on J Montreal, let's say it happens to me. Somebody says, you're way off. Okay, tell me why. Explain to me. I love when people spend a few minutes and give me a little paragraph. You are off because this and this and this. This is actually what I'm looking for. And that, yes, you have to allow the process to happen. I would rather have the ability to send more matches and more options without the worry that each and every single one of them has to be perfect. I agree with you. It's more difficult than it should be because of the singles, because of you. And I have singles who say, just send me whatever you think. Send me whatever you think. And I love, my favorite singles are the ones who just say yes to everyone. Because you never know. An option is an option. Okay, I have a few more questions here. Everyone speaks of being vulnerable, genuine. How can you be a little more specific? Those words are catastrophically abstract. Okay, what does it mean? It's putting your authentic self. It's trying to find the essence of who you are, knowing who you are, and bringing that in to everything you do, and especially into your dating. That's what I'm talking about. Be vulnerable. Be personal. Share something that's intimate. Yeah, it's scary, someone to have, some secret of yours out there. But you need to put who you are. We need to get to know who you are, your personality. Don't be scared. The world is not going to eat you up. How do you have a phone conversation with someone who's very quiet? How do you encourage her to speak by phone when she hides behind infrequent texts and photos? It's really tough. But you know what? It depends on the kind of person you're looking for. A lot of people who are extroverts like to find an introvert. And people who are introverts like to find an extrovert. So I think that it's okay if if there's a lot of, that quiet time because the person has a hard time. Give them the opportunity. Don't fill the quiet space. Let the quiet space be. Maybe you need to just give them a little extra opportunity to have a conversation. Beginnings of relationships are awkward. There is no way to unawkwardize them. Don't try to fill every moment of that. It's okay for it to be awkward. Just say, start off. You want to know what authenticity is? This is awkward. There's no way to unawkwardize it. Can you handle this space here? Can you handle me not talking for a few moments? I know you're just waiting there for me to say something, but the quiet space is also really important. You get to see a person's soul, who they are in the moments they're not talking. So this is a person who's more soulful. It's beautiful. How can one be genuine if their values are physical and financial? That, my friend, is very tough because physical and financial are two vain values. I would say if physical is 2 and financial is 3, have a value that is not vain as number 1. That's what you have to do. To find the value that's your number 1 that is not vain. Can you give an example of how to describe kind and sweet? Yeah, I mean, what do you mean? When you think of someone who's kind, give me a story. Give me an example. I used to love how my father used to always, whenever we had guests, he always would go to the door and walk them out. It was such a beautiful tradition that he had. He always walked everyone who came to our home to the door. That's what I mean by someone who's sweet. Usually, when you're looking for a particular value in a mate, it's because you know that value from somewhere else. You know that value from someone else. So create the narrative. It's a really important narrative that needs to be created. Another question. In being authentic in one's profile, does one have to be specific about the mechanics of observance, diet, and other values? Well, it depends on the kind of person you're looking for. If religion is important to you, then yes, I think that it's important to be able to be on the same page as the person that you are looking for. It's not a game. It's not this trick. You're not trying to create some kind of magic potion here. It's a real person that you are a real person. and you are looking for a real person. So why not just say what it is? Why does it have to be this like game and this mental stretch of an imagination and idea? I don't see why. I have a bunch of emails that came in, and I'm going, people that had some questions before tonight, and I'm going to answer those questions. And obviously, if you have a few more questions, I'm happy to go through those as well. So let me go through this question. Number one, how to navigate the shidduch search and process in these challenging times, where in some places of the world, like South America, where I am right now, there's restrictions due to the pandemic. It's not easy to go through this when I don't know when this is going to end. And besides the restrictions about meeting physically and traveling, the possibilities become reduced in a way. If you can Zoom with somebody, how long can you keep a virtual relationship? You know, long distance relationships are not new to Corona. We've been doing it for a long time. And especially, I'm assuming the person who's asking me is more religious. I think that long distance relationships can last a very long time. And I think that eventually you have to meet. But it's going to happen. You can date for a month or 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, people aren't dating, in the old days, people were dating for a month, even in the very religious world. But you can date, or 1 or 2 or 3 months without that problem. Here is, just give me a second. 8 minutes, okay? I have 4 more questions to answer. Sorry, they're looking to come in here and something else is happening. Okay, number 2. I've been in a relationship for just over 2 years now with a Catholic Italian man. We've spent a lot of time together, traveled, met each other's families, and I thought we were on the same page when it comes to long-term goals. I would like to live under the same roof. Right now, I only see him on the weekends. When I suggested that we spend more time together and perhaps merge homes, he flatly said no. He said he prefers that we each keep our separate spaces and keep on dating companionship indefinitely. This is a switch from our original conversations of what we wanted to do down the road. My question is, should I stay or should I go? I'm so conflicted. Is he serious? Is he commitment phobic? Should I be patient? He's a wonderful person and we have many good moments. I wanted more. I wanted stability, but he flat out said no. If you are looking for marriage, you need to be, this is where vulnerability, you're asking for authenticity and vulnerability. You're in a relationship with the person. You said 2 years, so it's not a day. You have to say to this person, I am looking for someone. I like you, whoever you are. I'm looking for someone that will commit. I need that security. I need that. That's what I'm looking for. I told you that from day one. We've had conversations before about this. That is exactly what I'm looking for. And just be honest about it. So that way, if you do end up, rupture in relationship is an incredible thing. It's an amazing thing. If your relationship's either gonna get stronger or weaker, but you don't want it to plateau. Your relationship has plateaued right now. So you have to take it one way or another. And the only way you're gonna take it either up or down is by being vulnerable. So you have to just be honest. And there's no good way of saying it because it could be that you're not gonna like the answer. But it's not true. You're always gonna like the answer because it means that you're not gonna get, you're in a limbo time now. That's not good. You've plateaued this relationship. That's not good. So you just want to allow this relationship to allow the rupture to happen, make the rupture happen, and see what happens. Maybe he's gonna come to his senses and he's gonna say, oh my gosh, I don't wanna lose you. But if you're allowing this relationship to happen perpetually, the way it's happening, then he has nothing to lose by continuing this narrative. If you rupture it, either it's gonna become weaker or it's gonna become stronger. Either way, I consider it good. Okay, I have 2 more questions. I said I would finish at 10 o'clock, so we'll just do these 2 questions and then we'll call it a night. What are your thoughts on Baal Tshuvas and someone observance from birth? also putting together people from different cultural backgrounds, Ashkenaz and Sephardi. I've had great experiences because I will tell you, in my opinion, it's more important to focus on where you're going than where you're coming from. It's great to have that similar cultural background. It's great to have the similar value system but we're all adults here. And if you have worked on yourself, you know who you are. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, maybe you're not going to laugh at the same jokes because you don't know the same jokes from your childhood. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Maybe for you secular people, you're not going to have the same TV show references. Oh, I'm sorry. But that's not what it's about. It's more important to focus on where you're headed than where you're coming from. So if you have a similar path, if you're heading to a similar place, if you have a similar core values, if you have similar non-negotiables, that is much, much more important than having a similar background. And I have seen great Ashkenazi Sephardi relationships. I've seen great people from the Baal Tshuva and the religious world relationships, secular and more traditional. I've seen it all work because these are people that were on the same path together. After how many months in a virtual dating relationship because of COVID-19 should one plan a visit in person? It really depends on the situation. There's no set thing, how long, how many. I think you have to feel it yourself. At some point, you're going to say, if we don't do the next step, this relationship is like many people have asked me tonight. This relationship is great. I've heard it's amazing, but we've plateaued. So if you're in touch with the relationship, as it progresses, it will start plateauing. And if it's plateauing, then you know it's time to see each other, even in a COVID world. You have to figure out a way to see each other. And I've seen it happen. Someone just told me, somebody here in Montreal met somebody in New York, and she went on a essential service truck with somebody. She found a way over the border. There's ways of doing it, even in this world. I've never seen anything stop love, and maybe one day we can make a nice movie out of it. That would be fantastic. I thank you very much for spending these 2 hours with me. This has been quite enlightening, more than what I had planned on talking. I love these questions. They're amazing questions. I hope that I've answered them to the best of my ability. I hope that I've shed some light. Some of them I definitely want to think about more, and maybe I have one question there that really took me about what can the religious world of dating learn from the secular world of dating. I'm going to think about that, and I maybe will do a session on that in the future. I am planning another session in 2 weeks from now, 2 Wednesdays from now, and I will send you an email about that. If you have any ideas for future sessions, please let me know. If you have something you want me to cover, a topic that you want me to discuss. A lot of the topics that I have discussed came from people's recommendations. So I love the feedback, the recommendation. Tell me what you think. Send me your comments, questions, death threats, you name it. So until next time, thank you very much, and have a great evening. And you know where to find me. And thank you. Always nice thank yous. I really appreciate it. You're very welcome, all of you. It's been really great, really a lot of fun. And I know I feel bad that there were too many people to be able to have a one-on-one conversations or to unmute you, but I hope that I've tried to bring my authentic self forward so that we can have a real conversation here tonight. And I think the questions have been fantastic, and you're very welcome. Thank you for being here and for sharing this space. Okay, have a good night. Yes, I will send I recorded this, so I will send it out in the follow-up email. I'm going to send you a follow-up email either tonight or tomorrow, God willing, and you'll get the recording, and you'll get my whiteboard, my whiteboard pictures that didn't work, and you're going to get a bunch of other stuff in there as well. Okay.